Hello and welcome to the Onion Creature. Today I have a cool list for you to enjoy. And not just any list, but a list for this freaking thing. Nintendo 3DS. The Nintendo 3DS is probably my favorite purely handheld Nintendo device, not counting the Switch, which is a hybrid between handheld and home console. I think the game quality for it is just incredibly high, and I've played many of them. Wanted to share with you what I believe to be the best of those that I have played. The Nintendo 3DS came out in 2011. I didn't pick one up until 2013 to go with Pokemon, of course. And the big new feature for this console was, of course, the stereoscopic 3D included. I do see people sometimes hand wave the 3D effect as not being necessary or useful, which is perhaps true, but I do think it does enhance several of the games that are featured on the system, including all of the top 10 games that I have listed here. All of them utilize the 3D slider in some way. The 3DS, got games released for it from about 2011 to about 2019. So in that time, there were a lot of super high quality titles. I believe this is when Nintendo merged their handheld and home console video game developing teams. So the 3DS has games which feel a lot, I'd say, bigger in scope and more like home console experiences than we saw on previous Nintendo handhelds like the DS, Game Boy Advance, etc. So here's some ground rules for my list. First thing to note is that I will not be including eShop titles on the list just because there's a lot of great ones. The 3DS eShop has some of the most interesting and unique titles Nintendo has ever made. I think I would rather perhaps do another video at some point in the future highlighting those. The other thing to note is that, of course, I am only discussing games that I myself have played, so there's certainly a chance that there's some 3DS software out there that I would really love, and perhaps I might make it to the top 10 list, but this is the top 10 list as of February 2025. May change in the future, of course, but that's where we're at for the moment. The last rule is that one game per series. This doesn't include spin-offs. For example, Mario has a lot of spin-offs. So if there's a Mario spin-off that I feel deserves a spot in the top place, that does not preclude a main series Mario game from also being on the list. I think just to make it cleaner and more varied, because otherwise we'd have a hell of a lot of Kirby, we're narrowing it down by quite a bit. That should help us have a more varied and interesting list than if, we just had a lot of games from the same series, which we're gonna try not to do as much. There's gonna be a little bit of that. First off, I just wanna have some runners up, some games that didn't quite make the top 10 for one reason or another, but are well worth highlighting and recommending to you, the viewer. Rhythm Heaven Megamix. This is the first and only Rhythm Heaven game I've played, and from what I understand, it's a pretty great place to start as it features a lot of the mini games from the previous games in the series. I really love this game. It's an amazing rhythm game, reasonably challenging actually. Very simple but satisfying gameplay, amazing music, which is of course important for a rhythm game. Next up, we got some Pokemon titles. We got Pokemon Sun, which was Gen 7 on the 3DS. I really liked this game. It has some flaws. I think the script has been noted as being a bit too talky. The game does have a lot of dialogue, that's for sure. I think the story is quite good, at least for a modern Pokemon title. And it has some fun new Pokemon. I really liked the Alolan versions of previous generation Pokemon, like Alolan Muck is pretty freaking sweet. I mean, look at the goddamn thing. It has the Sandcastle Pokemon. A lot of fun stuff here. Definitely lacks in replayability compared to some other Pokemon titles. There isn't as much of a post-game, but still a quality one. Then we have Pokemon X, the first main series Pokemon title in 3D on the 3DS. I like this game. I did replay Pokemon Y sometime after. I think I got it through Club Nintendo or something. When I was replaying it, it was a bit of a slog. So that kind of diminished my opinion of Gen 6 a bit, just because it's really not that fun to replay, or at least it wasn't at that time. But it does have some bright spots. I like a lot of the Pokemon designs. The setting is France, which is fun. It certainly has some likable features. Definitely took the series forward in a lot of ways in terms of online features. There's a lot of good online features included in this one. Didn't make the top 10, but I do like Pokemon X. It's pretty good, pretty okay. Actually, I think my first video is like a Pokemon X shitpost on this channel from like 10 years ago, or probably over that at this point. That's a fun thing. Made that thing on freaking iMovie, man. Those were the days. Next up, This is a big title that is from a series I love, one of my favorite Nintendo series, but this is actually probably one of my least favorite entries, and that's Mario Kart 7. Mario Kart 7, to me, just feels kind of generic. It feels like a pretty straightforward sequel to Mario Kart Wii, but with less character to it. Speaking of characters, it barely has any compared to Mario Kart Wii and even Mario Kart 8, which came after. I also think it's weird that they started numbering the entries here. This is the 7th Mario Kart, but this is the first time they've had a number in the title, so it's a very weird choice. I guess there's some theming with the lucky number 7 item, which is kind of not much. Some of the courses stand out. Like I really like Rosalina's Ice World, which came back in the Booster Course Pass on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It has the Donkey Kong course. It has the Bee Queen from Mario Galaxy as a playable character for some reason. It introduced gliding, underwater driving, and kart customization, all of which are features I'm kind of lukewarm on. I don't really care that much, especially about kart customization. At this point, I don't really care about kart customization in Mario Kart. I'd kind of rather prefer they just went back to just having karts that you just choose. I think that's faster and more convenient, and I don't think it really adds much to have kart customization, at least for me. At the time, it was maybe a little bit novel, but yeah, I don't know. This game just kind of does not stick in my mind much as being one of the great Mario Kart titles, but it's not bad. Certainly, it's solid, and a lot of people had it, of course, because it's Mario Kart. You gotta have Mario Kart on your Nintendo system. So it's okay. Not much character to it, but it's reasonably enjoyable. Okay, I'm gonna pick up the pace on these runners up because we got a lot of games to get to. Star Fox 64 3D, just a really great remake of Star Fox 64 with really good 3D effect. Really great version of this game. I like the multiplayer too. Now we have one of my favorite Metroid games, Metroid Samus Returns. Not much to say about this. It's a remake of Metroid 2 Return of Samus. It adds a lot of new features like the new counter. Basically everything's redone. Developed by Mercury Steam, who went on to develop Metroid Dread, which I actually prefer a lot, but Samus Returns is also really great. Really fun, action-packed game, well-paced. Let's keep the Metroid train going. We got Metroid Prime Federation Force. Yes, this is in the runners-up because this game rocks. It came out at a terrible time. There had not been a Metroid game in like, what, 5 years or something? And then they come in with this pretty weird spin-off. But hey man, it's fun. This was actually the last online game that I played on 3DS before the servers got shut down and I got booted off the online. There were people playing, so you know, at least a few people like this one. Yeah, it's definitely unfairly treated by the Nintendo fan base, in my opinion, because of the conditions in which it was released. But if you look at it at an objective level, I think it's a really fun multiplayer co-op shooter. Everything just works really well. This is the first Metroid game that I played. Not counting like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes of Metroid 1. And I really liked it, man. What can I say? It's good stuff. We just got to touch on Kirby Triple Deluxe. I disqualified it since there's another Kirby game I prefer, but damn if this isn't a tremendous title. Really great sequel and follow-up to Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Really like the story in this one. It makes great use of the 3D effect. Plays it fairly safe, but it does have some fun levels and level themes. Some great new power-ups like Circus Kirby. It is very much deserving of an honorable mention. Okay, now we got the real list. Number 10 is Pokemon Omega Ruby. Yeah, there's a surprise. This one beat out all the other main series Pokemon titles on 3DS. Who would have thought? I'm super biased towards this game because Gen 3 was my the first generation I properly played. I love Emerald. Really, really great game. So this is a remake of that generation, and it actually adds a lot of new features and differentiates itself quite a lot from that original game. The reason it's lower on the list, though, is it does have some flaws. It basically only includes content that was in Ruby and Sapphire and skims out on stuff that was added for Emerald, which is a real shame. I know people got really mad about the Battle Frontier, or whatever it's called, because they kind of tease like, oh, we're gonna build the Battle Frontier, and then that never went anywhere. Good job, guys. So that's definitely a blemish, but the actual core experience of this, super fun. I love the base building feature that returned. I think they, as far as I recall, they enhanced it for this version. Added Street Pass, one of my favorite 3DS features, and it was used really well here. They added flying. You could fly on Latios or Latias. They added a bunch of legendary encounters. So there's actually quite a lot of post-game content to do in this one. They added a new story section, the Delta episode, which actually, that is one thing I kind of dislike. I think Zinnia as a character, I found her pretty obnoxious. I don't remember why. Something about her just really bothered me. I don't remember what it was, but other than that though, that story section is really great. The music is really exceptional. Excellent remixes of those Gen 3 songs. And yeah, so this definitely continued the trend of Soul Silver, Fire Red, and Leaf Green, of adding new stuff to these remakes to make them more content rich, which is something Game Freak stopped doing with the Diamond and Pearl remakes. They kind of just didn't add anything to those and did a super straight up remake. It was done by ILCA as opposed to Game Freak as well. And I guess they just like put all the new ideas they had in Legends Arceus. I'm never gonna call that game Legends Arceus. Never. They put all the new features in that game and just made its own standalone thing, and then just did nothing to Diamond and Pearl and just let it be as it was, but HD and Unity, and yeah, that looks really compelling. But with these remakes, it actually offers a unique experience from those original titles, which I really liked, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. Super nostalgic experience. I'm biased towards it. I don't care. Makes the top 10 just by a bit. Could be better, but man, I really love it. Number 9, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. This is another title I see get a bit of flack, and I can kind of see why. I think Luigi's Mansion 1 has more of it definitely has a more serious atmosphere. This one goes for a more cartoony tone, which I can see bothering some people. The ghost variety is also somewhat limited. There aren't that many ghosts, but the character that is injected into this game and the actually playing it is super fun. Amazing gameplay, really like the puzzles. I actually do like the atmosphere in this one. You have multiple different mansions you go to, and they have some fun themes. You got the greenhouse type mansion, the clock factory mansion, the ice mansion. Next Level Games did some really fun things with the theming. Since it is on the 3DS handheld system, the decision was made to split up the different mansions into various levels. I don't really care about this. This doesn't bother me at all. I replayed the HD version this year on Switch, which is a pretty good HD version. You do miss out on the fantastic 3D visuals, which is a shame. Also, the multiplayer mode is really good. It's quite fully featured for a side mode. And this is my list, damn it, so it's on here at number 9. Number 8 is Super Mario 3D Land. This was a game released in the launch year of the 3DS. It's a pretty great showcase of the 3D feature of the 3DS, and it makes platforming easier. The depth that you are given with the 3D feature helps a lot in platforming. It's used in a couple different puzzles, and the gameplay is really well refined and fun. Levels are pretty short and snappy. It's definitely a fairly easy game, but I don't really care because it's just fun throughout. It definitely has a lot of DNA from Super Mario Galaxy 2 without the more fun space theming. In terms of the theming, it's pretty generic. The biggest thing it has going on is that the Tanuki suit is back in this one, which is kind of boring, and I think that was a mistake for this era of Mario games to have them be more generic. It's actually quite replayable as well. That's how it is, man. Number 7. Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS. This probably wins the award for the clunkiest title in this top 10 list, but that notwithstanding, this is an amazing version of Smash Bros. The first version of Smash Bros. Made for a handheld device, the only Smash Bros. Made for a handheld only device. This was released before Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, and it was released on the 3DS, which had a much wider install base. So I think probably a lot more people have played this one, I would imagine. Maybe I can fact check that. This is a really great version of Smash Bros. It runs at 60 FPS, it looks really good. The characters have the bold black outlines to help make them out on the smaller screen. The 3D effect works very well. The character roster in Smash 4 I think is really great. You do miss a few from Brawl, but most of them are here, and the newcomers include some really good ones, like Mega Man, Wii Fit Trainer, Duck Hunt. So a lot of really great new characters, and I think why this game places so high is it actually has perhaps one of the best replayabilities of any of the Smash Brothers games, which is kind of good because it's on a handheld system, and that's Smash Run. Smash Run takes pretty heavy inspiration from Kirby Air Ride City Trial, also directed by Masahiro Sakurai. In it, you go around this big map, and collect power-ups and battle enemies and do little challenges. And after 5 minutes is up, you do a final challenge. And I've played this game so many times. One of the criticisms was that you can't actually directly fight characters. It's a 4-player mode even when there's CPUs, but you never actually see them on the map. And I can kind of see why they didn't do that. It did annoy a lot of people though. That's the biggest criticism I've seen levied towards Smash Run, is that you can't actually directly fight other players on the big map. But I can see why they didn't do that, because it would shift the focus away from actually exploring, battling enemies, because you'd just be battling other players the whole time, which is something you can do in Kirby Air Ride, but Kirby Air Ride's controls are a lot less precise, more slippery. It doesn't shift the focus away from the main core gameplay, which is gathering power-ups, battling enemies, doing challenges. I think it would perhaps negatively impact the flow of that game if you could directly battle other players, because I feel like people would just be battling each other the whole time if they could do that, which would kind of defeat the point. I could be wrong. This is just my little theory for why, from a design perspective, Smash Run is actually very sound. I will say, definitely not as good as Kirby Air Ride City Trial. I like that mode a lot more, but this is a really good Smash Bros. Variant of that. But apart from that, it is really great and has a lot of amazing additions compared to Brawl. It's a super notable title and one that I really love a lot and have put many hours into. Number 6. The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. This is a very special Zelda game to me. It's the first Zelda game I completed. I love it a lot. It brings a lot of freedom to the Zelda formula. You have the mechanic where you can go to Ravio's shop and buy different weapons and use those to tackle the different dungeons. It also has the wall merging mechanic, which has a lot of fun utility and puzzles. The story's quite good. It retreads some ground from A Link to the Past, but it has its own identity. It's a super high quality title and one of my favorite Zelda games. I think it has probably been dethroned by the remake of Link's Awakening in terms of my favorite top-down Zeldas, maybe, just because I like the story in Link's Awakening so much. But this would probably be a close second, because this is a super polished, incredibly fun top-down Zelda game. Number 5. Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon. Wow, what a twist. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon made it higher than the main series on 3DS. Wow, pretty crazy. This is the second Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game on 3DS, the first being Gates to Infinity, but I think it's a pretty huge improvement over that game. The story is a lot more interesting. They brought back the hunger mechanic, which was removed from Gates to Infinity for some godforsaken reason. I don't know why, but it's back in Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon. It has a lot of great new features that really augment the gameplay. Really excellent music as well, as is usual for the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series. And yeah, this is the last new entry we've had in the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series since 2015. We had a remake in 2020 of Rescue Team, which was great, but I'm really hungry for a new title, a new entry in this series that incorporates future generations. I don't know if that's super likely at this point. There was a scare a couple months back where the parent company of Spike Chunsoft looked like they were going to be bought, which included a lot of things like a bunch of anime stuff, as well as the developers from Software. Spike Chunsoft was in jeopardy of potentially being bought by one of Nintendo's biggest competitors, which I think possibly could have permanently ended any involvement of Spike Chunsoft in the Pokemon series. But that didn't happen. Sony just bought some shares of the company, I believe. So currently, I think Spike Chunsoft could make a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon title if both they and Nintendo wanted to, but that hasn't happened yet. I really hope it does at some point though, because this is a really great title. I would say it's my third favorite of the different Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. My favorite being Explorers, and then Rescue Team, and then in third, I would say this one. Truly great stuff. Now here's a fun, quirky title for you. Tomodachi Life. Man, I love this game so much. It is a treat. This is a pretty unique game where you create a bunch of Miis and they live in a big apartment building, and they just have all sorts of wacky interactions. The word to describe this game would most likely be wacky, because that is what it is. The Nintendo Direct announcing Tomodachi Life in the US is one of the greatest things Nintendo has ever put out on their YouTube channel. One of the greatest pieces of marketing they've ever done. It's one of a kind. Seeing that drop with like no context of what Tomodachi Life was the most incredible thing ever. What is going on at Nintendo? This is some weird shit, man. And then the game itself is just a ton of fun. You can play it for a long time, but after a while you kind of have seen all of the interactions that are available to you. There isn't that much variety, But with that said, the game is just so entertaining that that kind of doesn't matter, because I don't really care that much about that slight flaw of it being perhaps somewhat light on content, because the experience itself is just so unique and fun. And there's essentially nothing else like it, except I guess its predecessor on DS, Tomodachi Collection, which never released in the US. You could also make QR codes for your Miis to be shared online, so that was a fun way of adding to your island. I love the robotic voices that they have. The text-to-speech voices are so charming and weird. They make the whole experience work. I think if they weren't there, they wouldn't work, which is kind of demonstrated in its follow-up Miitopia. Yeah, Miitopia I do have. I own that game, but I don't think I'm ever going to beat it, because it just gets very dull after a while. It does not have the longevity of Tomodachi Life, and they removed the freaking text-to-speech voices, man. That's like one of the core tenets of this kind of game, is the wacky text-to-speech, bro. I mean, why would you do that, man? And that's the one that got remade for Switch. What's going on, man? Crazy. Speaking of, yeah, Tomodachi Life really does need to come back. It sold extremely well, as I recall, and I think would have a huge audience on Switch, or perhaps even Switch 2. Mouse controls would work extremely well with Tomodachi Life. If you aren't aware, it looks like the Switch 2 is going to have some sort of mouse control. So that would work really well with Tomodachi Life. Would love to see that. But yeah, in terms of this game, it stands up. It's one of the finest 3DS titles, one of the most unique ones, one of the most entertaining video games I've ever had the pleasure of playing. I had a weird Tetris effect with this game the first day it came out, because I was playing it for so long and hearing all the Mii text-to-speech. As I was going to bed, I had the text-to-speech voices echoing through my head as I was going to sleep, and it was a really weird experience. Yeah, this is what the game will do to you. It'll alter your brain in perhaps unusual ways. Okay, top 3. These are the big ones. Oh, good lord, here we go. Number 3. Animal Crossing New Leaf. This is my first Animal Crossing title, and as such, it's probably the most nostalgic one. New Leaf has a lot of the same DNA as New Horizons. It is not as versatile in terms of customization, but it does have perhaps more character to it. The villagers have more unique personalities in this one. I think the music is probably a little bit better, at least in terms of variety. In New Horizons, most of the songs are remixes of the main theme, but in New Leaf, there's a lot more compositions. The online in New Leaf is also quite good. The 3D effect, also super effective with the rolling log effect that Animal Crossing has. That worked really well. Yes, so big fan of New Leaf. I racked up a lot of hours in it. I did stop playing sooner than I did with New Horizons, probably just because with New Horizons you have more customization options. Also, that game was part of a huge cultural conversation when it came out, so that gave me a lot of momentum to keep playing. With that said, New Leaf does have its own place. You know, as such, one of my top 3 Nintendo 3DS titles. Awesome. Okay, number 2. This may be expected given my backdrop, but we're getting a Kirby game. And that Kirby game is Kirby Planet Robobot. Kirby Planet Robobot takes the Kirby series in a fun new direction. I think that's what makes it stand out from some of the other Kirby titles that released in the modern age, like Kirby Star Allies, Kirby Triple Deluxe, Return to Dreamland. They all have pretty similar theming, standard kind of grassland stuff, and then you go to a desert level, a lava level, that kind of thing. In Planet Robobot, they do add a fun twist to that, which is that everything has been mechanized, it's been taken over by robots. And as a part of that, you get the Robobot armor, which is a lot of fun, adds a lot of gameplay variety. I think that's probably the area it shines brightest in comparison to the other 3DS Kirby title, Triple Deluxe. It's a lot more fun than Hypernova was in Triple Deluxe. One of the best soundtracks, has a lot of unique electronic sounds in it. One of the best Kirby final bosses in this one certainly incorporates some fun lore stuff if you're inclined to Kirby lore. There's a lot to glean from this one. So one of my favorite Kirby titles, one of the best titles on the 3DS in general. So it's making it to number 2. But hey, we got one more left, and that's Kid Icarus Uprising. Give it up for Kid Icarus Uprising, everybody. It's number 1. You've done it again, Pit. Good on you, lad. Okay, we don't need the notes no more. Oh shit, that was loud. All right, that just turned the fan on. Good gravy. All right, everybody, be careful chucking notebooks. Dangerous things can happen. Nothing's broken. There's just, I can't believe that turned on the fan. That's really weird. Where were we? Kid Icarus Uprising. This is a reboot / sequel of the Kid Icarus series from the NES, which also got a sequel on Game Boy. But they're, I don't know, fairly standard action platformers of that era. I don't mind the original Kid Icarus games, but they're kind of just okay in my opinion. This one takes it to a whole nother level. It has some of the best story and characterization and writing in any Nintendo game. It's so much fun to play through. The characters talk to you throughout the whole game on the bottom screen, which is nice because you can have the story playing out while you're playing the game, which is something Sakurai is kind of against, I guess. He was really mad, I guess, when the Smash Bros. Brawl cutscenes leaked online and people could just watch them there. He kind of solved that with Kid Icarus Uprising by having the story and gameplay occur simultaneously. And the gameplay itself is really well refined. A lot of people take issue with the controls. I'm not one of them. You use the stylus to control the camera and the reticle that you shoot with, and there's basically two sections of the game. The flying section, which plays a bit like Star Fox on-rail shooter, and then after 5 minutes your power of flight is diminished and you're on the land segments, which are more slow-paced but still super fun. Lots of varied environments, fun enemies, and man, this has one of the best soundtracks in any video game. I would say that pretty confidently. The voice acting is really great. This is back when Nintendo hired union voice actors, which I think they don't do, or maybe they're doing that now, but at some point during the 3DS Wii U life cycle, they stopped doing that. But this was before that, so we have some really great, I guess fairly big name voice actors. They put out incredible performances. Also, speaking of voice performances, the voice of Kirby is the voice of the character Viridi in the Japanese version. So that's a fun factoid for you. But I've always played in the English version. It's the one I prefer. You know, the comedy is really strong actually. Like it's super goofy. It doesn't take itself too seriously, except for when it does. And it does every once in a while, but for the most part it doesn't. And it's a lighthearted adventure with a really fun tone. Some fourth wall breaking humor, but nothing too crazy. Nothing which really distracts from the experience. And it's all in line with that tone of the original game, which is also super goofy. There's some fun twists and turns in the story, and it has quite a lot of bonus content. There's different 3D models to collect, a bunch of achievements to get, and a really super fun multiplayer mode. Light vs. Dark is a really excellent multiplayer mode. Nothing fancy, but really quite fun and adds quite a lot of value to the experience. I remember I got this game kind of on a whim used at GameStop, and I was blown away by it. I really was. So much better than I could have expected. Super replayable, and every time I've gone back, I've found it to be just as fun. It has a interesting difficulty slider system, which works quite well. So yeah, I think just in all quadrants, this really does take the cake as being the best Nintendo 3DS game in my opinion. I guess that's it then. There's definitely quite a few 3DS titles I haven't played, but for my tastes, I think this is a very, very solid list, and one that I stand by. So yeah, that'll do it for the list for today. I think the moral of the story is that the 3DS has a really excellent and varied library, and you should go play it. Go play your 3DS right freaking now if you have one. If you don't have one, go buy one on eBay. You could also emulate it if you really need to, if you're strapped for cash. But if not, you know, get a used one, man. It's a barrel of laughs. It's tremendous fun. Bye-bye.